Welcome to the latest episode of Tech Talks with UNC Blue Sky Innovations. I'm Phillip, a developer at UNC Blue Sky. And today I'm talking with Stephen King, Chief Innovation Officer. And so today we're talking about something that's been a mainstream of sci-fi movies for decades, autonomous flying vehicles. So my first question is, these days we're familiar with autonomous vehicles, but what does a flying autonomous vehicles looks like in today's society?
Well, this is something of science fiction and something that we would love to see. If you think about you want a flying car, a self-driving flying car, a self-flying car, it seems like the next big step. I think we're far away from it, but let's talk a little bit about what it would take to do that. So first of all, I think we have to move completely to electric vehicles. If we're going to do the flying piece, because motors, essentially engines with gasoline, are very heavy. And so that lift and carrying that payload is significant. So we got to move all to battery. Second thing is we've got to figure out how to do this with human pilots who are professional pilots first. The great thing is there's a lot of companies moving in this direction. Specifically, Joby has got some really exciting promises for in the next couple of years that we're going to see with flying vehicles, and essentially it's essentially like a large drone, but it has a pilot inside of it. So it's a multi-copter thing that's going to move people across a city. So we're starting to get that direction, but maybe not to the point of the autonomous version of it yet.
Sounds good. Looks like we have some progress on it. So could you explain the key technologies and sensors that used in the autonomous flying vehicles enable them to maybe navigate and make decisions in real time?
Yeah. So it'll be very similar to what we'll be learning through autonomous rolling vehicles, right? So on the ground rolling vehicles, we have lots of different sensors. You can do LiDAR, radar, image detection, all these different things to detect objects. And so we're seeing that in cars today. We're learning a lot from that. We use machine learning to make it so that the cars can make better decisions when they're approached with different situations. And so essentially we'll just elevate that, and instead of looking on a singular plane, we'll have to be looking on a 360-degree sphere and expanding that. So computationally, that gets a lot more difficult. And then also the implications of an accident is even greater in the air than if you were on the ground. And so I think we're a long way away from seeing the pilot go away, but it is still fascinating to think about the technology that would be needed to make that happen.
All right. So given the technological advancement, right? So in your opinion, in what ways does this new technologies make this autonomous flying vehicle more accessible and more practical?
Well, as we advance technologies, this includes both the software to make better decisions, to make it a safer environment, but ultimately we're having to see improvements in battery technology. We need to see improvements in the way we lift a payload. So all of these things coming together are going to ultimately help and lead us to have better flying vehicles, to do it more efficiently. And hopefully that empowers people to be able to move throughout areas and deal with traffic and lessen the traffic possibly, because essentially all traffic is built on a single plane. We can then elevate that into multiple airspaces, the same way that we do with air traffic control today, or the way you might have seen in some science fiction movies.
Right. So now we've talked about the mechanism behind it. Could you elaborate a little bit about the business applications of it?
So first of all, I think you're going to see the ability to do it the same way we do with the rideshare app. Is you're able to go and request your flying vehicle that's going to take you and move you there. So there's going to be businesses around transportation for that. There'll also be delivery services and being able to move products around quickly. And so there's going to be a lot of growth around lots of kind of just things that are currently done with a car or currently done with large airplanes to be able to do with smaller ways. So I think you're going to see a lot of growth there. You're also probably going to see it in agriculture. And being able to kind of basically have these kind of super drones that move agriculture around. And so it's going to continue to grow and expand in lots of different industries.
Seems like a very exciting future ahead of us. So what are some of the challenges, considerations associated with integrating autonomous vehicles into existing infrastructure, airspace systems, particularly in terms of the regulatory compliance and public acceptance?
So as we have new technologies and numbers of people that use them, we have to grow the infrastructure underneath it. And so essentially, if you said, okay, all of a sudden now we're going to have thousands of flying vehicles that are just all of a sudden going to hit the air, then air traffic control is not set up to deal with that, manage that. So we have to think through those implications, but we have time to do that because it's not just all of a sudden we're going to throw 10,000 vehicles, they're going to grow over time. I think you're going to see, if you think about it, it's taken 100 years for us to learn how to manage traffic, and road systems have evolved over time. We're going to have to see that in our 3D space of being able to deal with that. So there will need to be some types of different infrastructure and plans put into place to manage these, but these are not things that we can't overcome. They should be things that we can work over time, be thoughtful about it. The only problems that we see is ultimately if you have an accident in the air with experimental technology, that's going to be catastrophic. Right? And so we got to be very careful. We can't just experiment in the air. We have to follow the same procedures and structures that the FAA has put in place and follow and innovate within those structures.
So besides the challenges you just talked about, right? I'm also very curious about how my flying autonomous vehicles might impact the environment in terms of noise pollution and emissions.
I think on the emission side, it's going to be a lot less. I think we're going to move to fully electric. It's going to be all powered by batteries essentially. So that's going to have emissions plus. If we take away some of the traffic problems, that'll also help with emissions across other areas. But then there also is the noise piece, right? So you think about what it takes for a helicopter to lift off, there's significant noise there. If we make them with smaller props, but more of them, does that help with the noise? I haven't seen any data specifically around if it's, more or less. But ultimately, that's something that companies are going to have to work through because, different neighborhoods and cities will have certain ordinances that they're going to have to follow. And so they're going to have to deal with those policy implications. So yes, noise is going to be an issue that companies will have to solve that problem.
All right, Stephen, thanks for talking to this exciting topic with us. Now, make sure you're following our socials and looking for our next Tech Talk soon.